to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, April 18th. We are back. We have intro music. We have co-hosts. What's up, Jason?
What's going on, man? You sound much more into the show today.
Much more
upbeat.
It just feels good to be home. Have the right equipment, have the all the right computer set up. The co-host, everything working in our favor. The doing it on the road thing. I mean, obviously, you got to do what you got to do. We can't let the people down, but the quality definitely takes a hit. Just gonna have to see if we can have more effective workarounds in the future. Technical difficulties are. Man, technology is great when it works, isn't it? But it's the worst when it doesn't. So anyway, if you guys have not guessed, and if you're new to the show, welcome. I'm Griffin. This is Jason. We are the Fantasy Football Fanatics. We are missing one of our co-hosts, CJ, today, but he should be back for Friday's show. And today we have quite the show for you guys because we are diving in, as we've been doing for the last week and a half, into our consensus early rankings. These are pre-draft rankings. So as I've been saying for the last couple shows, guys, these are not final. Please do not take too much away from these. These are very, very early rankings. These are based on a lot of reports that are coming out of the teams, the news, the highlights, the blurbs, the coaching changes. There are a lot of things going into place. So I know sometimes you'll see something and be like, I don't know if I agree with that. Just bear with us, guys. These are going to adjust as we go through the offseason. These will be very, very different in about 2 weeks when the draft ends. And then, obviously, through the training camps, through the preseason, we'll be constantly making adjustments and tweaks. This will not be our final ranking show. There's a lot of offseason still to go, and we're going to be here with you every single step of the way. So, today, again, we're getting to our early consensus wide receiver rankings, part 1. So, we're going through our wide receiver 1s, numbers 1 through 12. If you're new to the show, we focus on everything as a 12-team league. We are doing our rankings based on standard mode because that is what the majority of people play, but we do offer our rankings in PPR and half point per reception. All you have to do is send us a message, and we'll have those up on the website as well. So if you want to interact with us, as I just suggested, you can do so very easily on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. We're locatable on Facebook at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. You can leave us a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube at youtube.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. A lot of options, and they're all good ones. So go ahead and reach out, and we'll happily interact with you. We're here for you guys. That's why we do what we do, besides our kind of probably unhealthy obsession with football and fantasy. So, and make sure you guys subscribe wherever you're listening. We are a year-round podcast. We do shows every single week, and, we'll be here. So with that, let's get to it. No warm-up today. We're going to jump right into some of our top headlines from around the league. Only a few to get to that are fantasy relevant. Obviously, this is a very quiet time of the year as we go from really the dying down of free agency into the last-second prep for the draft. So mostly what we're talking about today are people calling it a career, people getting released, things of that nature. We'll start, though, at the quarterback position, where the NFL has suspended free agent quarterback Mark Sanchez for 4 games for violating the league's policy on performance-enhancing drugs. Well, Mark, you're probably going to struggle to get a contract anyway. This probably isn't helping. So, Mark Sanchez.
Man, he might not play this year.
Yeah, who'd have thunk it? The butt fumble. So I would assume.
He's going to be the butt of a lot of jokes, I'm telling you.
I wish I had the drum roll. Dang it. I dropped the ball in the sound effects. Dang it. But, if Mark Sanchez signs with a team this year, I'm going to assume it's going to be a mid-season signing, camp body. If somebody gets hurt, they're going to have to bring someone in, that kind of thing. No one's going to want to bring him on just for a suspension. Not that he's going to be a starter anyway. Let's go to the running back position, where the Denver Broncos have surprisingly released running back C.J. Anderson. So this was something that we had heard a lot about a couple months ago, and the news kind of died down. It seemed like most of the rumors had been squashed. They had seemed like they were going to move forward with the team as it was. Well, apparently they were not able to find a trade suitor with C.J. Anderson. They were very apparently intending to dump that salary, and they have released him outright. So C.J. Anderson, a guy who was in our consensus rankings on Friday's show, no longer has a team. So look at that. Our rankings already evolving and changing. Look at that.
Dropping like a rock.
I know, right? So obviously, as we know more, we will let you guys know more. A couple of potential teams have been listed. The New York Jets have released running back Jeremy Langford. Talk about a guy who kind of flashed in the pan a little bit there and hasn't really been much of anything for a while now. So, again, another somewhat known name into the free agency pool at running back. Oh, here's the big one. If you follow us on Twitter, we talked about this for a while. The Dallas Cowboys have released three-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Dez Bryant. So I talked about this on Friday's show, talking about how he was going to have that meeting with Jerry Jones, that you guys, by the time you listen to the show, would probably know more than I knew at the time of the recording. Yeah, pretty early into the day, this news broke that Dez Bryant, he didn't want to take a pay cut. They desperately needed him to because they really needed the cap space. They were overpaying him a lot for what his production had been the last couple years. He's not really recaptured the magic with Dak Prescott that he had with Tony Romo, and they just cut him outright. So a guy who definitely has a couple years left in the tank. I don't know if we're ever going to see the Dez Bryant from many years ago. I don't think we will, honestly, unless he lands with a true Pro Bowl quarterback, which can really help elevate his game. But, a three-time Pro Bowl wide receiver, a massive red zone threat, is now a free agent. There have been many, many teams that have been linked to him, to him, including your Arizona Cardinals and my Baltimore Ravens, Jason. So let the bidding war begin, I guess. Is there a landing spot that you would really like to see for Dez?
Well, first thing, it's something I mentioned on Twitter. Again, if you follow us on Twitter, you probably saw me say this. I would like to see some team take him and do what Arizona did with Larry Fitzgerald a few years ago and move him to the slot, because he doesn't have the speed anymore. Obviously he's something, kind of come off his speed, but he doesn't need it in the slot. He can body out those safeties and linebackers and become a nightmare in the middle of the field. So, given the fact that we already have Larry Fitzgerald in that position, I'd love to see him move to the slot and maybe go to Baltimore.
I would love to have him in Baltimore. Him and
sure you would.
Him and Crabtree working the underneath stuff while we have John Brown stretching the field, maybe get the running game really going. Look, Joe Flacco's never had a wide receiver core like this, so we go from terrible to pretty darn decent. A number of guys who could argue are question marks and over the hill, but still the best wide receiver core he's ever had, so I'd be okay with it. A couple other teams that have been linked to Dez Bryant or have thrown their hat actually into the ring. Now, we know Dez Bryant has apparently suggested that his number one target, we're hearing from rumors, this has not come directly from him, that I can at least find if it has, was that he would love to sign with the Giants. Some nice divisional rivalry there. And can you imagine Odell Beckham Jr. and Dez Bryant on the same team? That's scary.
Odell Beckham Jr. and Dez Bryant on the same team? My gosh, that's a lot of personality on one team.
Borderline terrifying. Obviously, he's also been linked to the Redskins, again, a rivalry. The 49ers have been linked to them as well. They're always looking to upgrade the wide receiver core, Kyle Shanahan. The Texans, interestingly enough, they could add a nice another big body red zone threat for Deshaun Watson. Seahawks have been linked to him as well. Jags, I heard a rumor about. They're listed on NFL.com as a potential landing spot. I don't know if they're going to go after him or not. Panthers.
That makes sense, but I don't know if they got the money.
True. There's the Panthers, and then, of course, the one that everyone links every single player, whoever has gotten cut in all of time, and who can help get this rough diamond back to its former glory? The Patriots, and that's kind of what I was talking about with a potential future, all-star, Hall of Fame quarterback, get a ring, all that stuff. So those are the potential landing spots. I think some are much more realistic than others. Time will tell. But I think that, honestly, there have been a lot of reports talking about my Ravens. My Ravens aren't ones to spend big, but I would love to see him in Baltimore, also because the Ravens were going to draft Dez Bryant. If you may remember, to way back when, early in Dez Bryant's career, the Ravens were about to be on the board with a desperate need at at wide receiver, and the Cowboys, as they do quite often, traded right in front of the Ravens and drafted Dez Bryant. So I'd like to see it actually happen. That would be nice. I don't know beyond that where I really see him landing. My main landing spots that I'm hearing rumors are the Ravens and the Patriots, and potentially the Giants, because he might take a cap-friendly deal to sign there. So we'll see. And with that, let's move on to the tight end position, where there are yet even more reports that are suggesting that tight end Rob Gronkowski, New England Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski, that is, will be traded before the start of the 2018 season. This is a mixture of off-the-field problems and all the stuff that's going on right now with his retirement and some other things that have been happening behind the scenes. Not going to deep dive on it too much. We've been reporting on this consistently for weeks, months now. We always say where there's smoke, there's probably fire. We said that about C.J. Anderson a couple months ago, and then the smoke kind of went away, and obviously here it is. He got released. I have to say I'm starting to believe this Rob Gronkowski news could have some legs to it. I still think it'd be ludicrous for them to move him, but it seems like he's not happy with some of the philosophies of the team and some of the coaching. So, good God, Rob Gronkowski.
Rob Gronkowski.
Wow, I'm so caught up on these guys being linked to the Patriots or the Patriots players. Yes. So, Rob Gronkowski potentially out the door. Jason, what are your thoughts there?
Man, if you're a Patriots player, you need to understand. You need to understand that they don't care. They don't care about you as a person or a player. They will cut you. They will trade you. They will move you. You are not too good. You got to buy in. That's the bottom line. Gronkowski doesn't want to buy in right now, it looks like, so he might be out the door, and that might just mean he loses an opportunity to get himself another ring. So, Patriot players, man, they're the ones that don't buy in completely. They end up out the door, and Patriots don't care. They keep rolling.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots, they know what they want. They know what they like. They know what they're trying to do. They have their system. They have their scheme. They have their way of approaching things. I mean, look at the one-year rental they had on Brandon Cooks. They didn't exactly catch lightning in the bottle like they hoped they would, and they used a first-round pick to acquire him. They traded him for a first-round pick. So the Patriots, before they would have had to pay him after this year, pretty decent contract. So the Patriots, they're crafty, those Patriots. No pun intended.
What they do.
Yeah. So,
crafty.
Yeah, you see what I did
did there.
Hey. But, yeah, so Gronk potentially out the door. The question is, who would trade for him? Because I have to imagine there's a lot of teams that would be interested, but I don't think he would go cheap. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the coming weeks, if not months. Last bit of news and some other news. All-Pro former Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker James Harrison has announced his retirement after 16 seasons in the league. Holy crap, the guy with the craziest workouts I've ever seen, calling it a career, showing that, man, if you put the time and the effort in, you can make a career. And not just a short one either, a really long one in this league.
A long career.
I mean, he went undrafted. Am I misremembering that?
I believe he did go undrafted, but it didn't matter. I mean, the guy is a freak. I mean, he is an absolute freak. I'll never forget watching the Super Bowl 2008, those damn Steelers versus my Cardinals, and this guy caught an interception on the goal line and ran it back 100 yards.
I remember that.
He outran the entire team. I hate this guy, but at the same time, I absolutely respect him. He's awesome. He's one of the best, and I definitely think he's going to end up in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, he has to. I mean, that long season, that long career, the plays that he's made, just being this imposing force in a time period where players like him are kind of a dead breed. So,
Iron Man.
Yeah, I don't know if he has the total stats that would make him a first ballot guy, but I would love to see him in there, and I think he gets there pretty quickly. So
I think so too.
Yeah, James Harrison. I'll say as a Ravens fan, I'm not sad to see him go, but I, like you, do respect the crap out of the guy. So there you go.
Yep.
With that, let's move on to why we're all here. Our topic of the day, our early consensus wide receiver rankings, part one. Very early. I can't stress that enough. Don't get too upset about it. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and dive into how we have them right now as of April 18th, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll start with our number one wide receiver, unanimous across the board. Should be no surprise, but I'm sure it will be to some, Antonio Brown. And really, this just boils down to consistency, guys. Ever since he took over as the main wide receiver in 2013 with the Steelers, he has led the league in almost every major statistical category. He is a monster in yardage, touchdowns. He's never finished outside of the top 10. He's just a beast of a wide receiver. He's just as good in PPR. He's a phenomenal athlete. And, if you're looking at early first-round picks, you're looking for guys who won't bust. This is a guy who's as safe as it gets. He's 29. He'll be 30 in the season, so he's getting up there, but he's still very much in his prime. I think he's got a couple years left in him easily. His quarterback situation hasn't changed, which is great as well. It's Antonio Brown, guys. I don't think we need to say too much more than that. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, you hit most of it right on the head. The guy is absolutely pretty much the best in the league. He's consistent as heck. He always gets a lot of volume. He's got still the same offense that he's had for years. They're going to continue doing what they're doing, and he's going to continue being pretty much the best receiver in the league.
I've been listening to some discussions and reading some articles talking about how if he can keep this up for another couple years, he could go down as the second best wide receiver of all time. And, I mean, he's making a strong case for himself, so we'll see.
Absolutely.
It's going to be pretty impossible for anyone to ever catch Jerry Rice, but, yeah, man, Antonio Brown, monster, and not in just one aspect of the game, like many of the big names that we know and love through not just real life but fantasy as well. I mean, he gets it done in every single facet of his game, underneath, outside, inside, end zone, you name it. Antonio Brown does it. Fantastic contested ball catcher. You can't say enough good things about him. And the high floor makes him a great first-round pick. So unanimously, we have him as our number one. It's as safe as it gets. Number two, we start to fluctuate a little bit. Both of you have Odell Beckham Jr. at number 2. I have him at number 3, but, I mean, still, top 3 guy. That's that tier. You're kind of splitting hairs here. It's times like this that I wish that former host and part-time contributor Ryan Mitchell was here because he's the biggest Odell Beckham fan I've ever met. But, yeah, I mean, look. Who, as CJ would say. But, yeah, Odell Beckham Jr., just to be brief about it, of course. We all know the guy. Coming back from injury, which is concerning. But, I mean, when healthy, we've been talking about how you could easily make the argument that he is the best player on the field at any time he's on it. He's a phenomenal talent, one of the top wide receivers in the league, not just here in fantasy, but in real life. He gets it done. The off the field is the drama, which is why we were thinking he might get traded, but he's staying. At least he seems to be, and he's just that type of talent. I mean, again, we're splitting hairs here. You guys have him at 2, I have him at 3, so it's not like we're really disagreeing here. So, Jason, you're higher than me. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's the star there, and he's obviously going to remain the guy there. I mean, they had a little dust up, and the dust cleared, and he's still there, and he's participating in practice. So I'm pretty sure they're going to move forward with him. I can't see them moving on from him, and we talked about that a couple times. I mean, it was fun to speculate where could he end up, but really, if you're the Giants, you got to hold on to him. So. As I said, consistency has been very, very good when he's been on the field. As long as he doesn't do anything stupid, he should be one of our top 3 guys.
It would be a safe call. I mean, he's been right in that contention spot. I mean, even though he's only played a full season back in 2016, I mean, he's always in the 1,300-plus yardage range. He's always in the double-digit touchdown range. And for fantasy, that's what you want. So... yeah,
right.
It would be hard to make a case to not have Odell Beckham Jr. in that top tier in your top 3 wide receivers. Next guy on our list, I have at 2, and both of you have at 3, so again, splitting hairs here, and that is DeAndre Hopkins. Guys, look, DeAndre Hopkins, he got it done last year, and the thing that I love about DeAndre Hopkins, and I know this is kind of hypocritical because I've been the most critical on him on this show, and honestly, having him where I have him makes me a little nauseous, if I'm honest. And I might tweak things to fall in line with where you guys are, because just having him at 2 just makes me uncomfortable. But look, he is a monster. He gets over 30% of the targets in that offense, which is an unbelievable target share. He is just getting peppered with targets. Not the best hands, not the highest quality, but with Deshaun Watson coming back, I think they put it all together, and better quality targets means for more production, more touchdowns. Last year, with the carousel of quarterbacks, he still had just about 100 receptions, 1,378 yards, and 13 touchdowns. We saw that back in 2015. When he gets a lot of targets, he is an unstoppable force. Not the most productive on a per-catch basis, but as a whole, he is a monster for fantasy, and that's why I really love the upside, especially with Deshaun Watson coming back. I know I'm kind of down on Deshaun Watson, which is what kind of makes it interesting. I think was I the lowest out of the 3 of us on Watson? I don't remember.
I believe you were,
I believe I was. But it doesn't matter because I think that the vast majority of his targets are going to go Hopkins' way. So even if I'm down on the quarterback, if somebody's getting 30-35% of the targets, he's going to be productive. So DeAndre Hopkins is that guy. And, I mean, whether you agree with him at 2 or you want him down somewhere around 4, I mean, it's still one of that top 5, elite first-round wide receiver talents. You're going to take him there or else he's going to be gone. Jason, your thoughts?
Every player has that one year where it's a down year and they just look really bad. And DeAndre Hopkins had that year a couple years ago, and I was definitely down on him after that. I was like, okay, obviously not a very good receiver because he can't make it happen. Well, he was dealing with the fact that he was going through a carousel of quarterbacks and not very good quarterback play from any of them. And then you put in there Deshaun Watson, who was much more consistent, played extremely well, and his consistency went back up, and of course stayed up even with the carousel from this year. So I agree with you on Watson a little bit. I'm a little hesitant because of the sophomore slump. I think maybe we might see a regression by Watson, but I don't think it's going to matter too much for DeAndre Hopkins. He is the target monster in that offense, and I think he's going to continue being that.
Yeah, I'd love to go more in depth about Watson, but we're going to keep the show moving. If you guys want to know our thoughts and our takes on Deshaun Watson, go back, listen to our quarterback ranking shows. We talk about him there. So, yeah, with that, I guess we'll move on to our number 4. Man, so we all unanimously have this guy at number 5, but our number 4 wide receiver is Mike Evans, which shows how already past those top 4 guys, we're starting to get a little bit wide on our rankings already, a little inconsistent with each other. So, but we all unanimously have Mike Evans at number 5, and I think we all kind of agree here that Mike Evans is a freak talent. He suffers from bad quarterback play at times, but he's never not gotten you 1,000 yards, and that's something that you can be really excited about. He had a magical year in 2016, which was getting him taken in a lot of circles as the number 1 wide receiver off the board, which we were not believers in, but you saw it. It's not that I think last year was a slump. I think it was the quarterback play. I think it was the new weapons. I think this whole offense kind of getting going. The first week bye, a lot of weird things happened to this team, plus the distractions of Hard Knocks. I have to believe they get it going this year. We know the talent that is Mike Evans. He gets a lot of targets. I know the hands at times have been questioned. The quality of target, as I've already mentioned, is always a question, but I just believe Mike Evans has the ability and the opportunity in front of him to really get it done. And having a guy who has a floor of 1,000 yards, that's a pretty good starting point for fantasy. Quarterbacks or touchdowns are inconsistent, so fluctuations are to be expected. But if you can get that yardage, you're pretty happy. And this guy's definitely the main target in that Tampa Bay offense. So, Jason, what are your thoughts?
I was kind of surprised with myself that I had Mike Evans as high as I did. I think from that magical season in 2016 to the season this last year, I feel like the truth of who Mike Evans is somewhere in the middle. But that's still pretty darn good. Like you said, he gets a lot of yardage. He's a freak athlete. As long as his quarterback play improves, which we hope it will, he should stay pretty good, pretty consistent. He is the number 1 guy in that offense. So he's a pretty safe bet to be a top 5 guy, in my opinion.
We hope it will, and honestly, it really has to. I mean, this team has a lot.
No, it doesn't have to. We've seen crazy things than a great receiver play horribly. I mean, or a good quarterback not get any better than what they were. So I mean, it doesn't have to, but it'd be nice if it did.
Right, but the team has a number 1 overall pick invested in Jameis Winston. They need to get a little bit more out of the guy. So that's what I mean when where I'm coming from. He's got the weapons. He's got the opportunity. They need some help at the running back position, which now I'm really intrigued about something like C.J. Anderson coming in because I think that'd be an interesting signing, and that would give them really that kind of north-south runner that they could complement with Jaquiz Rodgers. So I've honestly been thinking about that, though I haven't heard any rumors as of yet. 2 great tight ends. Adam Humphries as well, and Chris Godwin, one of my favorite sophomore wide receivers this year. They've got really, really talented pieces here. Jameis Winston really struggled. So, I think that all this comes together. Yeah. Mike Evans has a pretty good floor for you, and obviously the ceiling is much higher than that. So we all have him at number 5, which ironically puts him at number 4 for us overall. Our number 5 wide receiver, however, Michael Thomas. Now, we're a little bit spread out here. I have Michael at 4. You have him at 7. Jason, CJ has him at 6, so he splits the difference here. So do you want to go first with why you're so down on him, or do you want me to start off with what's so good about him?
I'll start. I mean, I'm not really down on him. I mean, he's still top 10 guy, in my opinion. Well, he's very, very good.
Again, splitting hairs, devil's advocate here, trying to make it interesting, because obviously
we all... As opposed to number 4 where you have it.
Right, we all like it. It's a difference of just a couple spots, but, to keep it interesting.
Right. Okay. Well, for me, the main thing is that I feel like this offense kind of turned a page this last year, and they went more toward a running first type of an offense, and which is good to do with an aging quarterback, even an aging quarterback as good as Drew Brees is. He did finish right around where I have him ranked. He finished 8th on the year. So I don't think it's too crazy to think that he would finish at number 7 and get the same kind of production that he had this last year. It could go up, but you still got those two monsters in the backfield coming into this season. So I don't know. I still need to see what else happens, what they do in the draft and all this kind of stuff. This is one of those picks that could slide massively up or massively down for me, depending on what happens going forward.
Yeah, I'm so high on him because I feel like he's building. As I just finished talking about with Mike Evans and a number of other players that we've been talking about over the last couple episodes, I love the work share. He went up in receptions. He went up in targets. He went up in yardage. His averages were about the same when it came to average catches a game. His average yardage went up. The only thing that went down was his touchdowns, but only a couple. So people were like, oh, he had a down year, but not really. The only thing he went down in was touchdowns. He went from 9 to 5. And as I just finished saying, touchdowns are unpredictable. I feel like this offense, like you said, was very run-heavy. They really unleashed this running game. But NFL defenses are not stupid. These are professionals. They all get paid. They're going to have watched an unbelievable amount of tape on this New Orleans rushing attack. They're going to have a lot of interesting new creative ways to stop it. This team is going to have to be more balanced. I think they're going to go back to being very balanced, leaning more on the pass than they did last year. Where, I mean, look, you've got an all-pro, first-ballot Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees there. Why not use the guy? And Michael Thomas is going to be the main beneficiary here. They brought in some other weapons, Cameron Meredith. They brought back Benjamin Watson to be distractions. But, look, I think this whole offense is going to funnel, obviously, through the running game and through Michael Thomas. So I love Michael Thomas's ability to, at the very least, repeat what he did last year. And I honestly think in his third year, we talk about that magical third year all the time, and he's been darn good for his first 2 years. I could see that magical third year. He takes a big boy step, and he gets maybe the 1,200 yards he got last year, maybe closer to 13, and he gets you double-digit touchdowns. And then we're talking about a guy who's going to finish as probably a top 3 wide receiver, so I appropriately have him as a top 4. Could his floor be lower than that? Sure, the touchdowns, like I said, unpredictable, but I like the upside, and honestly, he's played 2 years, and his bust rate is 0 for me because he's been a very good wide receiver with a good floor, so I will happily take him. I think he's going right now kind of at the top of the second, and I'd be very comfortable taking him there. Would you agree with that?
Top of the second, yeah. For Michael Thomas, absolutely.
Yeah. I'll have to check his actual ADP, but I believe last time I saw that's where he was going. Let's actually, you know what? Why not? Let's just check it right now. Let's see. Michael Thomas. Yep. Second pick of the second round. Man, I'm good. So, yeah. There he goes. Our number 5 consensus wide receiver, Michael Thomas. Number 6, a guy who finished number 6, if memory serves. That is, if you remember correctly, Julio Jones. Now, I know there's a lot of shows out there that will contest, look, and we agree. Prototypically, wide receiver, talent, you name it, Julio Jones is a freak athlete. No one will ever contest that. He has finished as the wide receiver 6 each of the last 2 years. That's consistency on paper. But if you actually watch this guy week to week, which is why I am so low on him, I have him at 8, and we say that's so low, but I have him at 8. You have him at 6. But CJ, strangely, has him all the way up at 4. I'd be... Really? I know.
I'm shocked.
I thought that he was really probably the biggest hater on Julio Jones out of all of us. But, if I talk about this all the time. He has massive blow-up games, and that's what really skews the year-end totals, which is why we always tell people you have to remember what happened. You can't just look at totals at the end of the year because they're a little bit biased. If you take out his one massive game from the 2016 season, he finishes as a mid-tier wide receiver 2. If you take out his one massive game from this past year, 2017, he barely finishes as a wide receiver 1. And so that's just how crazy the swing is, his big performances. Because of those big performances, he will crush it for you from time to time. He will win you weeks alone, but a lot of the other times, he will lose you weeks because he'll get you 20 yards, maybe 30 yards, and he's your wide receiver 1. You can't be getting 2.3 at times, or 20, 30 yards, you'll be getting 2 or 3. Obviously, we see those decimal point games where he gets fumbles and things like that. Now, we know the narrative. Steve Sarkisian was coming in. They're going to get him more involved in the red zone. Didn't really translate, as we already kind of talked about at good length. He went from 6 touchdowns in 2016 with Kyle Shanahan down to 3. But here's the thing that they're not really talking about. I know some places are, but not everybody, especially people playing fantasy and doing their drafts right now, which, by the way, is ludicrous. He actually was massively increased in targets. I believe the target share was 14 red zone targets, which was second in the league behind Jimmy Graham, if memory serves. I have to bring up the stat exactly. Wow. But yeah, so he was massively involved. He just didn't convert anything. I don't know if that was quality of target or what it was, but if he gets some of those touchdowns, we're having a completely different conversation about Julio Jones, because those touchdowns would have evened out some of those really bad weeks, and we'd be talking about a guy who was much more consistent and a guy who probably would have finished higher considerably than wide receiver 6. Top 3 range then. So it's that inconsistency which really concerns me about Julio Jones. The talent undeniable, which is why we all have him as a wide receiver 1, but the hesitation is why I have him down as a mid-range 1 as opposed to that top 3 that he's he's kind of become accustomed to being. If you go back the past couple years, he's always been anointed this top 3 wide receiver status, and I didn't do it last year correctly, and I'm not doing it this year. Jason, what are your thoughts?
No, I agree with you. I think he's a ghost. He flashes all this ability, and like you said, one-on-one, he's probably the best one-on-one receiver in the league. But he just doesn't. He doesn't produce. He doesn't produce through most of the season, and like you said, he'll have 2 or 3 games where he absolutely explodes and has amazing games. And if you're lucky enough to have started this guy for those games, you're thinking you're lucky stars. But the rest of the season, he disappears, and he's gone. And you're just like, this is not a wide receiver 1. This is a wide receiver 1 every now and then, So, yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't trust at all this guy to be somebody that can give you, consistency across the board. Now, having said that, I've got him ranked at number 6 because he's been 6 the past 2 years in a row. I figure he'll just do it again.
So you're preaching consistency on a guy who's inconsistent. I like it.
He's inconsistent throughout. This is the thing, like you just mentioned. He's inconsistent throughout the year, but he's inconsistent on the year.
Right.
Which is weird.
And thus my sarcasm. But yeah, again, just to give you guys a glimpse, if you're new to fantasy, week 12, 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. Holy hell. Week 13, 24 yards.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's the kind of...
That kind of stuff will drive you insane.
Yeah. You'll never know when to start him. That's the problem. And you'll probably end up benching him the 1 week that he goes off. Because he strangely enough, likes to do it against good defenses. So I don't know. Yep. But yeah, that's the roller coaster ride that is Julio Jones. So if you like to live dangerously, he could be the guy for you. Number 7, a guy that we're kind of split on. Man, I cannot, for the life of me, I cannot understand why I'm the highest on this guy, because this is CJ's guy. The fact that CJ doesn't have this guy at number 2 or number 3 is honestly shocking to me. And that is, if you haven't already guessed, if you've been with us for a while, you probably could, Keenan Allen. Now, Keenan Allen, look, he's back. He played a full season, and we've seen when this guy is healthy, he is a monster for fantasy football, both standard and even more so in PPR. That first half of 2015, money. Obviously missed 2016, and then all of 2017. He started off slow, still finished as a top wide receiver with 1,393 yards, just under 1,400, and 6 touchdowns. And, touchdowns are hard to come by, especially on this team, which has so many big body wide receivers that are red zone threats, but he still gets it done. He still commands a massive target share of the offense, and because of those consistency facts and the fact that we have nothing but proof of him doing it with Phillip Rivers, I believe that he can easily reattain these stats, because if you go back to the 2015 season, you count that out over a full year, he would have landed right about where he finished this year. So I really like Keenan Allen. Obviously, injury is a concern, which is why I have him down lower at 6, and I would honestly like to get him down maybe another spot or 2 because of injury concern. But if he plays the full year and he's able to get 1 or 2 more touchdowns, again, we're talking about a guy that has that top 3 wide receiver upside. So, yeah, Keenan Allen, CJ loves this guy. I can't believe that he's one spot lower than me. CJ has him at 7. I'm at 6. Jason, you're down at 9, so I'm assuming you're preaching caution here?
Oh, my God, yes. I mean, he played 16 games this last year, okay? That's nearly double the amount of games that he played the last 2 seasons combined, okay? The guy is always, always hurt. And they had a fantastic season. But, again, I got to see 2 seasons, string 2 seasons in a row for me. You know, let's see you do it again. Play 16 games, show me this kind of consistency, and that's great. Now, I have him ranked higher than I've ever ranked him before. Number 9 is the highest I have ever ranked Keenan Allen. And the reason for that is I am a big believer in the Chargers offense this year. I think that they're going to do very, very well. They look like they're primed to make a deep run into the playoffs. I think I preached about this when we talked about quarterbacks, about Phillip Rivers. I feel like this is their year. This is the year that everything comes together. And there's so many targets now that Keenan Allen is not going to have to shoulder as much of the load as he would have had to shoulder before. So that might just help to keep him healthy. But, like I said, he's been injured his entire career. This is the only year he's played all 16 games. So I preach caution. But at the same time, I still have him as a top 10 receiver.
No, you're absolutely right, and I've made that case many times in years past, so I completely agree. But yeah, the upside, the floor, this guy's going to be a little polarizing in your drafts, and draft accordingly, depending on how you feel about the guy. Let him fall so you can get someone else, or draft him early and have yourself a monster receiver if he stays healthy. Let's move on. Our number 8 wide receiver on the season, our first really massive discrepancy, is Tyreek Hill. He's our consensus number 8. Now, you have him all the way up at 4. I have him all the way down at 12. And CJ is right where he landed, splitting the difference, of course, mathematically. It all comes together at 8 as well. Now, do you want to give me a rundown on the upsides of Tyreek Hill before I say why I have him at 12?
Yeah, no, sure, that's fine. All right, so Tyreek Hill is an absolute freak. I mean, the guy is the fastest guy on the field whenever he's on the field. He has proven over and over again that he is extremely, extremely versatile. He can do a lot of different things. They use him in a lot of different ways in Kansas City. And I have him up at 4 because I think they've got themselves an upgrade at the quarterback position in Patrick Mahomes as far as taking shots down the field. We all know that Alex Smith did not take a lot of shots down the field. He was a game manager who was able to do a lot of intermediate type stuff. And Tyreek Hill, a lot of his yardage came off of the run after the catch, and that's wonderful. But now you're talking about a Patrick Mahomes who's got an arm much like a guy that's coming out of the draft this year in Josh Allen. He's got a freaking cannon attached to the side of his shoulder. He's going to put that ball down the field. He's going to take shots because that's just the kind of guy that he is. And I think Tyreek Hill is going to be the beneficiary of those shots and going to get himself an opportunity to score more touchdowns. Okay, and because that was the one category this year that really didn't change all that much. He had 6 touchdowns in 2016, 2017. He had 7, so just one more. But he went up in every other category. Over 1,000 yards. It was 1183. His average went up 15.8 yards. His yards per game went up to 78.9. Every single category went up for Tyreek Hill, and I think that's going to continue. And this is his magical 3rd year, like we just talked about. You got Patrick Mahomes coming in. Yes, you need to worry a little bit about a new quarterback and a new system, but I have a feeling that Tyreek Hill is going to be the beneficiary of Mahomes being the new quarterback.
And simply put, my view on why I have him down at 12, which feels a little low, and I'm not married to that positioning, but is what you just said. Patrick Mahomes, it's basically his rookie year. He sat all of last year, so he's got to get in there. He's got to prove it. We also have to see that he can overcome the pressure he's going to face against some really good defenses, not only in his division but around the league. And the other thing that really concerns me here is the target share. They don't throw an astronomical amount in Kansas City, and let's not forget the addition of Sammy Watkins, who I think is going to be more on the outside, more in the red zone, which will limit Tyreek Hill, I think. Tyreek Hill can kind of do it all. He's explosive, athletic freak, as you have said and say all the time, but he did a lot of his damage underneath and then breaking tackles. Now, Sammy Watkins could easily help him create those openings, so it could be mute, but I'm lower on him right now just because of the unknown. I don't know how I feel about Patrick Mahomes, and I don't know how drastically Sammy Watkins is going to affect his touchdown upside. So those are my concerns. Could I see a world where he finishes where you have him up at 4? Yes. Would I ideally take him somewhere around where CJ has him at 8 with our consensus ranking at 8? That's probably where I'm going to see him go in my leagues, and I would not be opposed to taking him there myself. But with the rankings, how I have them right now, I just have a couple other guys that I like better than him. So that's where we're at. So, yeah, Tyreek Hill, number 8. Number 9, a guy you may have expected to hear earlier. I sure expected to hear him earlier, and that is A.J. Green. Now, CJ has him at 9, and you have him at 10. So I think we're all believers in A.J. Green. I think that this is a combination of the quarterback and the offense/offensive line. Look, A.J. Green gets a massive target share. They're not necessarily quality targets, but a massive target share. He's only had one season in his entire career where he did not break 1,000 yards, and that was 2016, when he missed 6 games. And he didn't play in 6 games, and he missed, he actually got injured the very first play of one of those weeks. So really, I would argue he missed 7 games, but he was at 964 yards in that season. He is a yardage phenom. They've upgraded their offensive line. They've brought back pieces to try and keep this offense going. They're going to address more positions of need in the draft. Of course, they have a rookie last year in John Ross that, it's hard to do worse than negative points in fantasy, so you have to assume they're going to get him going, which will distract from A.J. Green. I just think A.J. Green, he's going to be kind of a post-hype sleeper. I feel like a lot of people are going to be taking him a lot lower, which is where you guys have him, where this is a guy who the last couple of years has been going as a top 4, top 5 wide receiver, and you might be able to get for a steal, because I could see him easily return to form. He's 29. He'll be 30 by the end of the year, which, again, as we talked about with Antonio Brown, for instance, not the end of the world. It's not terribly old. It's up there, but it's not to the point you have to start worrying about it consistently. I just like the upside of A.J. Green, especially for a guy you can get later in your draft. So that's why I have him at 7. And then again, we're splitting hairs. You have him at 10, not terribly far behind me, but why are you lower on him than I am?
Well, the main thing is it's not A.J. Green at all. I like A.J. Green a lot. I think he's one of the best in the league. But that offense concerns me, and that offensive line concerns me. And yeah, they say they've upgraded their offensive line, but they really haven't. It wasn't much better this year than it was the year before. Still lots of quarterback hits and things of that nature happened. Yes, he got 1,000 yards, but he also had the lowest yardage per game total, or average rather, of his career this year. So all those things trend in the wrong direction for me. I still like the guy. I still like his production. He's obviously the man in that offense, which is why I have him where I have him. And again, this is one of those guys that may slide up or down depending on what happens in the off season, in the draft and all that. If they go out and draft themselves an offensive lineman, a stud offensive lineman, upgrade that offensive line, then he may slide up my rank.
Man, if only somebody could have predicted that the Bengals were going to struggle on offense last year because of that offensive line. Maybe we should be analysts or something. That's a crazy shot in the dark right there.
Maybe. I don't know.
I feel like we definitely, totally, 100% called that. So yeah,
I think we did
multiple times. So yeah, the Bengals, they've already taken steps to rectify that problem, and I think they will continue to do so as we move through the offseason. So I like A.J. Green returning to form this year. Number 10, home stretch, Adam Thielen. Now I have him at 9. Both of you have him at 11. And it makes me feel a little dirty because I've been openly against Kirk Cousins and the Vikings pass catchers because I don't like the new face in the new places. He's going to have to build a rapport with these guys, learn the offense. It's going to take a while to get going. So I honestly am going to, once I'm done statting him out, probably slide him down a spot or two to where you guys have him. But the upside is definitely higher than where any of us do. Look, he was able to get 91 catches, 1,276 yards, and 4 touchdowns with Case Keenum last year. Kirk Cousins is in now, which we'll all agree. I don't think that Kirk Cousins is the most elite quarterback in the league by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a definite improvement, and I think that Adam Thielen could easily improve on these numbers. My problem is just like I said, he new offense, new players, new everything. It's going to probably take a while to get going. I'm sure that's why you guys have him down at 11. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, that's caution. I mean, Adam Thielen's obviously very good. He's been consistently improving his game. And like you said, he's had a little bit of a quarterback carousel to deal with over the past couple of years, but it hasn't mattered. He's trended up in every season. He has played every game of every season. That's good. That means he's a healthy receiver. And last year was by far his best season, 1,200 yards, almost 1,300 yards, 79.8 yards per game. It's all good. He needs some more touchdowns. And hopefully that's what will come out of this marriage of Cousins with the Vikings. We'll see Thielen in the end zone more often. But bottom line here is, like you hit it right on the head. New face in a new place, new quarterback. We need to see it. We need to see how this is going to mesh together, and if he's going to be Kirk Cousins' kind of guy. So we'll see. I have high hopes for Adam Thielen this year, though.
Yeah, I have very high hopes for Adam Thielen and Kyle Rudolph, honestly, because Kirk Cousins loves his tight ends. So,
That's true.
But Stephon Diggs is also good. And that's the problem. He's got to build a rapport with these guys, and he's got to get this offense going. So I could see a world where Adam Thielen doesn't finish as a receiver one. I could see a world where he finishes as a mid-range wide receiver one. So the sky's the limit. Last two guys, let's get through them relatively quickly because we have some pretty incredible discrepancies among these guys. Number 11, we have Doug Baldwin. Now, you have him all the way down at 18. He finishes at 11 for us. I have him at 13. The guy who's pulling him all the way up to the point of being even in our top 12, because both of us had him ranked below the top 12, is CJ. CJ has him up at 10. Look.
Wow. Top 10 receiver?
Yeah. Look, he's done it before, and that's not to say he can't do it again. But I think, obviously the magical season back in 2016 where he had, 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. The year before that was the one where he had that amazing second half of the season where it was, 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns. Look, The guy can play. But the problem is the offense is unbelievably inconsistent. There's no running game. The offensive line is falling apart. There's no tight end in the red zone anymore, which will obviously help Doug Baldwin catch touchdowns, but they got to get the ball there first. I have to assume that the only reason CJ has him up this high is because he's a believer in Russell Wilson and the volume that Doug Baldwin is going to receive. That's the only thing I can say, because this is a guy who's been a good, not great wide receiver for a lot of his career. He's had a couple of really standout stretches, but that inconsistency is why I don't know if I would see him as my, wide receiver 1. Taking him as a high-end 2, I'm okay with. I can get behind that. But I don't want this guy as my number 1 receiver because consistency is a concern as well week to week. What are your thoughts, Jason? You are substantially the lowest here.
Well, I see this guy twice a year, and let me say this, okay? Nothing but respect for Doug Baldwin. The guy is a lunch pail and a hard hat type of a receiver. He's a guy that does the dirty work. He's a guy that goes out, gets the catches. He goes up against the number 1 corner when maybe he's not actually good enough to do that normally. He would be a number 2 in other offenses. But in this offense, he's the number 1 guy. So he puts in the work, okay? So nothing but respect for the guy. However, you hit it on the head when you said this offense is not what it used to be. It's crumbling. There's no run game. Not only that, the defense isn't what it used to be. They've lost a lot of pieces on that defense. That defense is going to struggle this year. This is something that the Seahawks have not had to deal with in quite some time, and that is a defense that is devoid of a lot of the talent that they had and is not going to be as dangerous as it's been in the past. So getting the ball back is going to be a problem, too. So because of all of that, and because, look, again, nothing but respect for Russell Wilson, too. Russell Wilson is a great quarterback. He has done a fantastic job, very Aaron Rodgers-like in the way that he plays, moving around in the pocket, creating things that shouldn't be there. He's the most frustrating guy to play against because he'll run around in the pocket for it feels like 3 minutes and then find a receiver in the end zone. Awesome. But he can't do that every single down.
Nope.
That's the problem.
And
Russell
we've seen
Wilson
that.
has had to be Superman.
Yeah.
He's had to be Superman.
It's unsustainable.
He can't do it all the time. And by the way, he's going into a year where he is facing a division that is getting substantially better. The Rams are better. The Niners are better. The Cardinals, some people could say that the defense is looking better this year. So, yeah, it's a scary situation. And, yeah, I don't expect him to be up in the wide receivers ones. I think he's going to be a wide receiver, too.
And I completely agree. So with that, let's take it home. We got a couple minutes left. And the final wide receiver on our consensus rankings is Davante Adams. Now, this is
Really?
a guy, oh yeah, this guy we've seen go actually a lot higher in other people's consensus rankings. I've seen him go as a mid-tier wide receiver 1, and you could easily make that argument. Look, he's never broken 1,000 yards, which is concerning, but he's consistently gotten you around 75 receptions and double-digit touchdowns, and that was with the debacle at quarterback that was Brett Hundley last year. I mean, obviously, Brett Hundley hyper-focused Davante Adams, which is the only reason that he got here. But with Aaron Rodgers back, Jordy Nelson out the door, I really like Davante Adams' opportunity to be even more productive this year. Is Jeremy Maclin? Wow, what is wrong with me? Well, is Jimmy Graham going to grab a lot of touchdowns in the red zone? Probably. That's what he does. That's probably why they brought him in. But I think Davante Adams is going to still be a beneficiary of one less big wide receiver threat out of the offense. And I could see a world where he definitely finishes higher than 10 where I have him. Now, I'm the highest at 10. You split the difference at 14. And, man,
And
CJ. CJ is insane. CJ has him down as a low-end wide receiver 2, and that's just because CJ is not a big believer in Davante Adams because he was burned by him in the past, and it's kind of that wait-and-see thing. I have to imagine that it's going to be adjusted soon, but, I mean, look, he still finishes as a wide receiver 1 for us, consensus. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything negative that you want to add to the guy besides consistency?
Negative? Yeah, I mean, like you said, never broke 1,000 yards. He came very, very close in 2016. That was his best season by far. But, yeah, consistency is an issue. Even when he was the guy, he still couldn't do it, you know? And, yeah, he had a bad quarterback. I get it. But then you're talking about Jimmy Graham coming in there. Jimmy Graham is just a better pass catcher than Davante Adams is. So I think he's going to suck up a lot of those targets that would normally go Davante Adams' way. I'll say this about him. He is going to be the number 1 receiver there as far as wide receivers go because you got no Jordy Nelson anymore, like you just said. So that's nice, but at the same time, I see this guy as a 2, not a 1.
I would argue that Davante Adams might be a better receiver than Jimmy Graham at this point in their careers, but I think Jimmy Graham is going to be a much better red zone threat because that's what he does. Then that's how Seattle used him. That's been his thing throughout his career. So Davante Adams, I think
you can't judge based on what Seattle did with him. I mean, Seattle had no clue what to do with Jimmy Graham. They kind of forgot he was there half the time.
No, but I can judge on his entire career arc. So we'll see, obviously, how it all plays out, and we'll know a lot more as we move through the offseason, training camp, preseason games, start seeing how they use these guys. But, yeah, so to recap, I mean, I'm just happy he made the wide receiver 1s because I think he's probably deserving of it. That's why I have him ranked as such. Our top 12 wide receivers in order: Antonio Brown, number 1. Number 2, Odell Beckham Jr. Number 3, DeAndre Hopkins. Number 4, Mike Evans. Number 5, Michael Thomas. Number 6, Julio Jones. Number 7, Keenan Allen. Number 8, Tyreek Hill. Number 9, A.J. Green. Number 10, Adam Thielen. Number 11, Doug Baldwin, which still is kind of interesting. And then number 12, Davante Adams. And that's going to do it for us today with our number 1 consensus early rankings of our wide receivers. Make sure you guys tune in on Friday when we will be back. And that's when it gets really interesting because, as you can see, our thoughts are getting pretty widespread already as we cover our early consensus wide receiver rankings part 2. So, again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. We're happy to interact with you guys and answer them. If you're watching on YouTube, comment down below. Submit them via email, Twitter, Facebook, at the FF Fanatics. We're individually on Twitter as well. I'm at GPalmerFFF. Jason is Jason Cabrera 13. Any parting thoughts before we get out of here, Jason?
Guys, happy to be back. Sorry I haven't gone for a couple weeks.
Yep. And we're going to keep this ball rolling.
Not weeks.
I was going to say, well, it hasn't been that long, has it? It's definitely been a couple shows, but not a couple weeks.
It feels like it.
Time flies, right? All right, so we're out of here. Everyone take care. Have a great week. We'll see you on Friday. Bye.
Life in the fast lane, moving at the speed of life, and I can't slow down. Only got a gallon in the gas tank, but I'm almost at the finish line, so I can't stop now. I don't really know where I'm headed, just enjoying the ride. Just gonna roll till I drop and ride till I die.